need to get this off my chest. I don't know if anyone will believe me, but I swear this happened. A few years ago, I was working late at the Hartwell Public Library, a place I'd always loved. It's an old building, the kind that feels like it has a soul. Arched windows, creaky wooden floors, the faint smell of aged paper hanging in the air. I was there finishing up some research for a project. By the time I noticed how quiet it had gotten, it was too late. The overhead lights had dimmed, and when I headed to the exit, the doors were already locked. At first, I wasn't too worried. I figured I could wait it out until morning. There's something kind of cool about being alone in a library, surrounded by all that history and knowledge. Or so I thought. It didn't take long for things to feel wrong. The first thing I noticed was the sound. At first, it was subtle, like a faint rustling. I brushed it off as the building settling, or maybe the ventilation kicking on. But then it happened again, and this time it sounded closer, like a dry, whispering breath. "Hello?" I called out, immediately regretting it. The sound of my own voice echoing back at me felt unnatural, as though the space was mocking me. I decided to sit near the entrance until morning, where the moonlight streaming through the stained glass windows gave me at least some sense of visibility. But as I moved toward the front desk, I noticed something that made my skin crawl. The old brass bell they used for the circulation desk. It was swaying, not ringing, just moving back and forth, like someone had just touched it. My stomach dropped. I told myself it was a draft, or maybe my imagination, but deep down, I knew better. Then the lights in the far corner of the library flickered, and I swear I saw something move. It was just a shadow, but it was wrong. Too tall, too thin, and it seemed to ripple, like it wasn't entirely solid. I told myself I wouldn't go near it. I tried to stay where I was, but something about that corner seemed to pull me in, like gravity, or maybe curiosity. When I got closer, I saw a single book lying open on one of the tables. The pages fluttered slightly, even though there was no breeze. I leaned in to see what was written, and my stomach twisted. The text wasn't normal. It wasn't printed. It was handwritten, and the words were chilling. "To the one who lingers, we've been waiting for you." I backed away, trying to convince myself this was some elaborate prank. That's when I heard it again, a faint whisper, so close it felt like it brushed my ear. I turned, and between the shelves I saw it. A figure stood there, almost human, but not quite. Its form was draped in black, its head tilted in an unnatural way, as if studying me. Its eyes, if you can call them that, were voids, empty and endless. I ran. No matter how fast I moved, the library didn't make sense anymore. It felt like the aisles were shifting, leading me in circles. Every time I thought I'd reached the entrance, I ended up back at that table with the open book. This time, the book had new words on its pages. "You cannot leave until we finish our story." The lights cut out completely, and I was left in the dark with nothing but those whispers. They weren't faint anymore. They were loud, coming from every direction. "Stay with us," they hissed. "Read with us." I don't remember much after that. When the sun came up, the whispers stopped, and the air felt lighter. I found the doors unlocked and stumbled out into the street, feeling like I'd just escaped a nightmare. I thought it was over until I got home and opened my bag. My notebook, the one I'd been using for my project, was covered in writing. Pages and pages of it, all in that same eerie, jagged handwriting. "Come back soon." I haven't told anyone until now. I avoid libraries entirely. But sometimes, at night, I hear those whispers again, soft, just out of reach. And I wonder if I really left the library that night, or if some part of me stayed behind. It was supposed to be an ordinary shift. I work as a security guard at the city library, and I've seen my fair share of strange things. People sleeping in the stacks, kids trying to sneak in after hours. But this night was different. I was doing my final rounds before locking up when I noticed someone sitting in one of the study rooms on the third floor. The lights in that section had already been turned off, but there they were, hunched over a table. I tapped on the glass. "Library's closed," I said. No response. I opened the door, and the air hit me like a wall, cold and damp, like I'd stepped into a cave. The figure didn't move, so I stepped closer. "Hey, "You can't be here," I said, my voice shaking slightly. They lifted their head and my stomach dropped. Their face, if you could call it that, was pale, almost translucent, with deep hollows where their eyes should have been. Their mouth opened, but instead of words, I heard a sound like a book's pages being torn. I stumbled back, but before I could leave the room, they spoke. "You shouldn't have come here." The lights in the study room flickered and went out. When they came back on, the figure was gone, but the table was covered in open books. Each one had the same phrase scrawled across the pages: "Stay quiet or they'll hear you." I bolted for the stairs, but as I ran, I realized I could hear something. It was faint at first, like the soft rustling of leaves. Then it grew louder. The sound wasn't leaves, it was voices, hundreds of voices, whispering all at once, coming from the walls, the ceiling, everywhere. I didn't stop until I was outside, the cold night air hitting my face like a slap. When I looked back at the library, every window on the third floor was lit, and shadowy figures were pressed against the glass, watching me. I haven't set foot in that building since, but every so often I dream about it. In the dream, I'm back in that study room, and the whispers are louder. They always say the same thing: "It's your turn." I used to work as a night janitor at a university library. It was decent money, but the place always creeped me out after hours. The rows of books, the flickering fluorescent lights, and the absolute silence. It all felt heavy, like the place was alive and watching. One night, as I was cleaning the upper floor, I found an old leather-bound journal sitting on one of the tables. That wasn't unusual. Students were always leaving things behind, but this one was different. The leather was cracked and worn, like it had been through 100 years of use, and the pages were yellowed with age. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. The handwriting inside was elegant, almost too perfect, but the words didn't make sense. It was a series of entries, each one describing events that hadn't happened yet. I'm talking about bizarre, detailed accounts of accidents, fights, even deaths, all written in the future tense. The most recent entry read, "Tonight, the janitor discovers my journal. He reads these words. He does not leave." I froze. The air around me suddenly felt colder, and the hairs on my neck stood on end. I slammed the journal shut and dropped it on the table, trying to convince myself it was some elaborate prank. As I turned to leave, I heard the unmistakable sound of a chair scraping against the floor. Slowly, I turned back. The journal was open again, and another entry had appeared on the page. "You cannot run." I bolted down the stairs, my mop and cleaning cart abandoned. But the faster I moved, the more the building seemed to stretch and twist. The hallways weren't the same as they'd been before, and every corner I turned led me back to the same table with the journal sitting on it. Now the handwriting was shaking, almost frantic. "Stay with me." The last thing I remember before passing out was the sound of pages flipping, faster and faster, like the journal itself was alive. When I woke up, it was morning, and the library staff had just opened the doors. I quit that job the next day.